everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. I figured we might as well do it live. So let me post this in a few different places. All right. All right. So we're back. We're back below 32. We're looking at our ever important 1 minute chart. As we've said, right? As we've said, expect the lull, right? Expect the downtime in the market. Don't get overly bullish right now. Be patient. But as I put out a video a week or so ago saying my outlook for the next 6 months, and hasn't changed, right? Hasn't changed. I would expect sideways is sort of like optimistic, down the pessimistic view. But I would not expect new all-time highs anytime soon, and I think the market needs time. It needs a lot of time to consolidate again, to figure out where the new normal is, because right now we're still trying to figure that out after such a major run up over 14 months or so without any key time spent at any major levels. We're sort of continuing to figure that out. So far, we're still above 30K. So, I mean, that's at least the silver lining, right? So far, we're still above 30K. I don't know if it'll hold. I mean, if you followed me back in 2019, 2020, I always speculated that we would have a lengthened cycle, that we would have diminishing returns, and that we likely wouldn't have a sustainable 20K until the end of 2021 or early 2022. And when I said sustainable 20K, I often defined that as meaning holding 20-week SMA above 20K, which we have not yet done. So we've held it above 10K, which makes me optimistic. Like, I don't think we're going to go back to, during this accumulation phase, I don't think we're ever going to go back to 10K. I would like to see us hold the 20-week as support above 20K. That's what I feel like we need to see before we can make a move to 100K. Okay. We need time, right? We need lots of time. Again, your daily reminder not to expect a V-shaped recovery, but to be pragmatic in our approach. Some people ask me, well, when are you going to get bullish? And I sometimes say in a someone says, can I tune is the volume not high? Some people say, well, when are you going to get, very bullish again? And my statement's usually the same thing. It's like, once the people that believe that finally capitulate, that drink the Kool-Aid of a $300,000 Bitcoin by the end of the year, once they finally give up on that dream, that's when I get bullish. Because there's just, there's so many people that have drunk that Kool-Aid. The non-diminishing return, let's go to 300K by the end of the year because everything's in a 4-year cycle type mentality. Most things, the market doesn't work like that, right? The market doesn't work like that. So let's just continue to navigate, right? I mean, I said before, expect this cycle to be, full of surprises, twists and turns along the way. We had one in 2019. We went up from 3,100 up to 14K, back down to 3,800, then up to 64,000. Now we're back down to 31,000. We have gone all the way back down to below 29,000, a couple weeks ago. Sorry, let me just read the comments. Yeah, I mean, I know some people. I know a lot of the people probably have given up on the dreams that we're promoting the 300K Bitcoin by the end of the year, but it's hard to let them forget that that's what they were saying, considering how much flack I took for telling people that it was unrealistic and poking fun at the theories that we talk about on here just because they were not as optimistic as the other models. So yes, I'm sure they're going to backtrack on them as we said they would, but it is what it is, right? We'll just move on, and anytime the market gets bullish again, those crazy predictions will come, and they'll come back just as fast, right? And the next time it'll be even higher probably. So a realistic prediction, in my opinion, is the market cycle it will drag out longer, right? Okay, so something that people talk about, right, is, well, I mean, this could be the market cycle peak. And I mean, yeah, there's a chance that we don't put in a new market cycle peak for a long time. My guess is that this is what I think, right? This is what I think. Remember, take what any one person says they think is going to happen. There's probably a good chance it doesn't happen exactly like that. I mean, I don't claim to know what's going to happen in the short term. But if I had to guess, and I think it would be somewhat poetic, imagine from a very biased perspective of believing lengthening cycles, right? This is what I've been saying since 2019. So it's coming from a somewhat biased perspective, but that bias is based on some dubious extrapolation of the data. I think it would be interesting if there's so many people, right? And sometimes when I talk about lengthening cycles, diminishing returns, everyone's like, yeah, like everyone. No, a lot of people don't think that, right? Most other channels don't think that. I think it would be somewhat poetic if let's fast forward to December. Okay, let's fast forward in our minds till December, and we're not at 150K, right? We're not at these crazy insane price levels that people have predicted for 2021. And then these people start to think, well, it was always promised that these crazy valuations were going to come at the end of 2021, and they didn't. And then maybe they capitulate, and maybe that leads to the final capitulation before we can actually go back up. I always told you guys that I don't think that 2022 and 2023 necessarily have to be bearish years, which they would be if they were on schedule with some nebulous 4-year cycle. My opinion is that the rest of 2021 is it's more likely to be neutral to bearish rather than overly bullish. And so I think it would be somewhat poetic if people thought that this was the market cycle top, if it doesn't put in like a new all-time high by the end of the year. So they think it's a market cycle top, and then they say, okay, well, we're just going to come back for the next halving. And instead of that being sort of the market cycle top, maybe we come down even further, test some lower levels. I don't want to draw it out, maybe we do something like this, and then we end up coming up here and putting in a market cycle top like that. Or a more optimistic view would be that we don't, well, an optimistic view, if you are, completely knee deep in Bitcoin at the moment, would be that we hold the line at 30K. Okay, so this would be like the best case scenario, right? At this point, the best case is we hold the line at 30K, which I feel like is a there's definitely a decent probability that occurs, right? We hold the line at 30K, and maybe we just sort of stay here for a while and then go back up or something like that. But I think it would be somewhat interesting if whatever this route ends up being, if people that were that believed that it was going to be at 300K by the end of the year, if these people believe that and then they don't see it there and they give up, maybe it leads to some final capitulation and then we move back up. I don't know. It's kind of like my dream of what would happen. that in line with what we've discussed. There's obviously other paths we could take. I mean, I feel like these are sort of the paths of least resistance. The one thing, the one main thing that I guess I'm looking at these days is will we get a bounce off the 50 week, right? And the only reason I say that is because we've gotten bounces off of it before. It did not lead to a change in the immediate momentum, but it led to a sizable bounce, right? I mean here it led to a sizable bounce of like 55% or so. We also had a sizable bounce off the 50 week back over here, which was like a 70 or 80% bounce. And lo and behold, that's where we are, right? I mean, that's look at this. I mean, we're literally sitting at the 50 week moving average. I mean, that's where we're sitting right now. So this is what what I think is worth looking at. If you want to know exactly where it is, the 50 week is at 31,875, and we're now trading at 31,850. So I mean, we're literally sitting right at that 50 week moving average, and we've seen sizable bounces off of it before. Now, you should note that those bounces did not lead to new all-time highs immediately. I mean, we always have put in new all-time highs eventually, um, but they did lead to sizable bounces that would be enough to get everyone FOMOing back into altcoins and whatnot. Um, so that might be something to keep on your radar, I suppose. Anyways, I think the other indicator that I like to show is our the little joke one that we made. It seems to be holding up relatively well so far. We will see if it continues to hold up. Okay, our little corridor. It currently has a lower bound at around 29K. And we'll see if that holds. Right, we'll see if it holds or not. But it currently has a lower bound at 29K. You can see we've tested that area. I should probably go to a different one here so we can actually let me get this Bitcoin all-time history. Yeah. So you can see, I mean, again, it was made as a joke, but you can see sort of some of the times we've hit some of these bottoms. I mean, obviously we bottomed here and then we ended up bottoming later at the same corridor. It was just that it was lower. Here again, that's where we are right now. So we'll see what happens in the immediate short term. Regardless of what happens in the immediate short term, whether we get a bounce off the 50 week or not, I still would not expect a new all-time high. The most bullish, I feel like the most bullish scenario I could see at this point would be a move back to like 50K or something. Like that would be the most bullish I could see. That would be from the current price, fairly sizable move. I mean, you're talking about 55%, which is what it did in 2017 or 2018, right? I mean, that's what it did in 2018 was a bounce off the 50 week, up 55% or so. And it took us back to the 20-week SMA. So that's also an interesting point. Okay, so I mean, it took us back to the 20-week SMA. Now the 20-week SMA is actually below 50K, so it's actually at 46,249 or 46,250. So it's just a bit lower than 50K. But I mean, Bitcoin's been getting hammered recently. Let's take a look at the weekly RSI. You can see that we've come down a ton. I mean, look at this. Look at where we are so far. So this was the bottom, 2018. This was the March dump of 2020. We're coming back down. I mean, this is now in July of 2021. So what I'm looking for again is long consolidation, right? As we said 2 months ago, long consolidation, no V-shaped recovery. Let's spend some time either going sideways, either continuing to go down and then figuring out where the bottom is, but go into this market with the right mindset. And that mindset is not immediate new all-time highs. Okay? It's not. It's go into the mindset of prices are bearish, they're more likely to trend down than up. And if you are DCAing Bitcoin, then treat it as as you would an investment that you don't care what it does in the next few months. Okay, treat it as an investment that you're looking at for a much longer time frame. If you're DCing Bitcoin, because again, right, there is a chance that 30K is the bottom, or 29K. There's a chance that it is. I don't know how likely that is to hold over the course of the entire year. It seems like over the course of the entire year, there's definitely a decent probability that we go below 30K. But for now, and we've held it for the last 2 months, right? I mean, we've had some wicks down below it. We had a wick down below it over here, and we had a wick down below it back in June 20, the week of June 21st or so. But I think the most interesting thing right now is to look at this and say, well, hey guys, we're back at the 50 week. We're back at the 50 week. It always seemed like this nebulous moving average that was so far off we would never reach it, and here we are. Okay, here we are. I mean, to be fair, when we were up at 60K or whatever, the 50 week was all the way down at $27,000. So it has come up. We've met it. If you're curious about some lower moving averages in case we do fall below it, the 100 week actually, I believe, just broke 20K. So that one just broke 20K. The other thing I think that was another interesting indicator was looking at sort of this corridor at where it extends to after a local top here, and then noting that it ended up being the bottom of a future accumulation phase. And then going to this one back from 2017 and looking at this one. You could also, though, make the case that, well, we had sort of an intermediate peak here in 2019. You could draw that one over. That one will be slightly lower, though, at like 26 or 27K. If we look at our regression bands, so let's look at our regression bands. We're still in no man's land, more or less, right? We're sort of in between. Okay, now the regression band, the upper bound on the upper part of the regression band is now $99,709, which to me, we are approaching a fairly impressive milestone. By the way, if you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe, give the video a thumbs up. We are approaching a fairly nice milestone for our logarithmic regression band. I know it seemed like it could break over here, but so far it held. It's approaching 100K. Okay, so the regression band is a monotonically increasing function, therefore it does not go down. Like this corridor, you can see it goes down occasionally. This regression band does not go down, okay? So it's now at 99.7K. It should be at 100K within about a week. So then it's like the regression band will then allow for a $100,000 Bitcoin. But anyways, you can see the regression band where we currently are. We're sort of in no man's land. We're not at a phase where we can say, okay guys, we're extremely heated and we need to calm down. If you guys remember, we overlaid the market cycle ROI like every 3 to 4 days on the channel, so much so that people were getting so sick of it, saying that we were ahead of schedule, way ahead of schedule. We needed to cool down, likely going to cool down going into the summer. Now we have cooled down. So we're no longer at this, at this sort of more obvious momentum shifting point, right? We're no longer at at the upper regression band. But also, we're still not at the lower one either. So we're sort of in no man's land, right? We're sort of in no man's land, which basically means that there's not a clear direction that it should head based on the regression band, right? I mean, like, there's been times, here in 2013 is a great example of it really pulling back a lot, but it didn't actually go back down here, and then it went back up. And we've very closely compared the current market cycle with that of 2013, albeit on a very lengthened scale. Like if it does continue to emulate it, it's stretched out, right? It's very much stretched out. Like if we were to overlay that one, and let's take it again from say like cycle bottom, and then like shift it over here, and put it on say that point, then you can see that first peak would have already occurred back in May of 2020. So like I don't know if it's gonna work if I try to stretch this, but you can imagine that if you sort of stretch this out, you can sort of see some of the similarities. It's sort of hard to move this, but maybe you sort of see what I'm saying. Like if you stretch it out, okay. But I would not expect this sort of return. I would not expect it to do something like this quickly because we're stretching it out. Um, so let me just I'm just trying to like show you more or less what I mean about it potentially being stretched out. But I don't think that it's going to, I think we could come back up, but it's going to take us some time. And then maybe by the time we do come back up, we'll hit that milestone that we discussed between 100 to $200,000. My guess by 2023. I mean, it could happen in 2022. I often said back in, my contention is that the earliest the market cycle could peak would be like say the end of 2022. But it could be further out than that. But in the meantime, obviously now we're just going to spend our time probably debating whether we already hit the market cycle peak, especially as I think as we went into 2021, the main debate that I saw was, is it a 4-year cycle, right? Is it a 4-year cycle / stock to flow, or is it a lengthened cycle? Okay, so this was the main debate, lengthened or the 4-year / stock to flow. And one important point I should make about the 4-year cycle is that there's actually a lot of different interpretations of the 4-year cycle. Okay, so not everyone interprets the 4-year cycle in the same way. There are some people who interpret it to mean that we have to have a cycle peak every 4 years in December. Okay, there are other people who think that it's related to the bottoms, not the peaks. So when we talk about the 4-year cycle, we have to understand that there's actually multiple interpretations of the 4-year cycle, right? There's actually multiple interpretations of it. With the stock to flow model, he's actually, the creator of this has actually agreed to come on my channel, and we're going to talk about these different cycle theories in about a month or so. So in about a month, we're going to have the guy who created this on the channel, and we're going to discuss, what are some of the similarities between the models, what are some of the differences between the models, and where's the common ground? Because at the end of the day, all of these models more or less point to the same thing, and that's generally speaking that the valuation of Bitcoin should generally trend up with time. The main disagreement, right? The main disagreement between these models is not whether Bitcoin should trend up, because I think we would all, anyone who follows these models would agree that the valuation of Bitcoin should trend up. The main thing is just at what time it should trend up and to what extent. Okay, so the main disagreement is exactly when it occurs and to what valuation, not if it should trend up with time, because I think everyone who's creating these models generally thinks that the valuation of Bitcoin will trend up with time. So we're sort of like, we're all playing for the home team. We just have different models to navigate the cryptoverse. So my thinking is that, if we don't go to these much more lofty valuations by the end of the year, then it's not going to be a debate as much anymore between, say, the 4-year cycle and say lengthening cycles. It might shift to be a debate over, is it lengthened, or was this a premature peak and did it actually get a bit shorter than the last cycle? So maybe that is what the debate's going to turn into in 2022, because if this ends up being, if the local top for, if let's say the max price for Bitcoin in 2021, if it ends up being in April, then there's no way that we can then say that this is exact. This is not 4 years, right? This would have happened closer to 2020 than the end of 2021. But so I think it would come down to, okay, well, was it a premature peak? And it's short, and we're basically going to be digging back at these lower values of the regression band. Are we going to be coming all the way back down here, back to maybe $10,000 or something, like a complete market cycle peak, where then we have to trend sideways for a couple years, and then we can go back up, like somewhere way out here. So that, I think, is what the conversation could turn into if we don't see a new higher high for Bitcoin in 2021. So a little bit of speculation. Obviously, there's a lot of speculation there because there's always a chance we put in a new high in 2021. So I don't want to, we're not going to get too ahead of ourselves here. If we do put in a new all-time high in 2021, then it still could become, well, what's more, what model seems to be modeling it the best? Is it the 4-year cycle? Is it a lengthened cycle? And I think we'll have to wait and see, because one possible path as well is, well, what if the more lofty predictions end up being a little bit closer to accurate than they appear right now, and we do come back up. Okay, so let's assume an optimistic scenario. So let's just walk through the different scenarios, right? So the more optimistic scenario, which I have my doubts on, would be maybe something that looks like this. Let me draw it a little bit more optimistic so we actually can have that discussion. So maybe something that looks like this, and maybe we're putting in a new all-time high by sometime in late 2021, or it's even more lofty and it goes something like this. So then the question, if it does something like this, would be, can it be sustained into 2022? So then that'll be the main point of discussion, is can it be sustained into 2022? And is it the 4-year cycle that ends up being the one that predicts it the most accurately? Or, could it continue going up for a while, have, say, a peak, at the end of 2022, and then come back down? So that's obviously one avenue, and then that would still lead to some debate. The other avenue is if we come back down, can we go back up and put in like a new all-time high, without having to spend like 2 years in our regression band? So that might be what the discussion ends up being, right? That might be what the discussion ends up being. Again, would be, now it turns into a debate of was this the market cycle peak, or can we actually see new highs in 2022 and or 2023? So we'll see. We'll have to take it one step at a time. Obviously, we're only halfway through the year. We have plenty of time. Bitcoin has plenty of time to, Bitcoin could go down to 20K and then still be back up to 100K by the end of the year if it wanted to. We've seen crazier things happen. So we'll have to see where we end up. My general thinking, as I told you guys, a few months ago, is that at the very least, I would expect a lull in the markets for the remainder of the summer, and to not assume that anything bullish, overly bullish, is going to happen in terms of new all-time highs in the summer. And so we're still in the dog days of summer right now. So I would continue to operate with that same mentality that we're not going to have any new all-time highs this summer. Let me just check out the chat. Andy says this guy earns his YouTube revenue doing what ifs. It's funny because people always say this stuff, and I don't even have AdSense turned on. So your comment says more about you than it does about me, making assumptions. So I actually don't earn any money on AdSense. Can you give a rough estimate as to what the top is of the next cycle? Yeah, I've told you guys, I think probably my more Um, the wide window is like 100 to 200K. The shorter window is maybe like 120 to 140. But again, I don't think it's going to happen in 2021. I've made that clear since 2019. Since 2019, I've said I don't think it's going to happen. Like my prediction is 120 to 140. A more wide window would be like 100 to 200. So definitively saying not 300, no way 300, 100 to 200, not in 2021, not in 2021. So that's where the models are sort of going to clash some, because there's going to be a lot of people that say, well, uh, you know it's going down now, therefore it has to go down for the next 3 years. So that might be what the argument turns into, or what the models, what we end up looking at. What do I think the next bottom of the bear market will be? So what I think, generally speaking, I think that the bottom after Bitcoin goes to six figures is probably higher than the current valuation. Okay, so one thing to look at is the valuation of Bitcoin at each halving. Okay, so at each halving, we've had four halvings now, and every single one has occurred at the fair valuation, right? Everyone has occurred at the fair valuation. Like this was, one was approximately like in this area, and then we had the one back in May of 2020, okay, and then we had like another one like somewhere, it was somewhere over here, back in the early days of Bitcoin, back in 2012. But what's interesting is if you look at it, right, we're always near that fair value at the halving. No matter what happened in between, we're around the fair value at the halving. And so then the question becomes, well, what is the fair value? And you might say, well, the fair value, it's just it's the middle green line. And you might say, well, the fair value is maybe not the best word for it, but it's just sort of the center line of our logarithmic regression band. That center line right now is at $14,632. Okay, so according to this model, the fair value, which I know it sounds crazy, right? So I mean, I'm sure the comments are going to go crazy. But according to this model, the fair value, meaning the midpoint of the lower regression band, is at around 14.5K, 14.6K, somewhere in that area, depending on exactly the day or whatever. But that value by the next halving out in 2024, so the next halving is going to be somewhere out here. Sorry, let me shift that over. It's going to be out in 2024. It's going to be around 40 to 50K, I believe. Okay, so I'm not drawing it that well. Sorry. But it should be around, I believe it's around like 40K, or 40 to 50K. It depends on exactly when the halving hits, right? It depends on exactly when it is. But if you sort of just extend this fair value out, the fair value should be around 40 to 50K by the next halving. And what we've said is that, generally speaking, the prior halvings tend to occur near where the fair value of the logarithmic regression band is. So if 40 to 50K is the fair value by the next halving, then what that means is that the current valuation could actually be lower than the next bottom of, say, a bear market after an even more major market cycle top. So again, now as I've seen in the comments already, now it's no longer turning into a debate about stock to flow versus lengthening cycles. Now it's going to turn into a debate as to, okay, is this the market cycle peak? And the only way we're going to know, right, as I said with stock to flow and lengthening cycles, the only way we're going to know is with time, right? We can argue all we want. Time will elucidate the truth, right? Time will elucidate the truth. I'm sure we'll spend hours discussing the possibilities. And, I mean, that's fine. But my thinking is, well, if this is the next market cycle bottom over here in, say, like a bear market, I mean, one possible way to get there would be say, okay, well, let's extend the upper regression band out somewhat in a rudimentary manner, something like this, okay? And let's then extend this out. They are converging, as you guys know. Um, let's say momentum carries us down a little bit more, and we go to the 20 to $30,000 range. Maybe we even go below 20K. I don't know. But then we could still come back up, to these higher valuations up here, and then still make it down over here. Um, that's one scenario, right? That's one scenario. Obviously, it's too early to say if it's going to play out like that, but that's certainly one scenario to look at. And I think, as I said before, I think time will elucidate the truth. Obviously, we can. Well, I'm sure we'll spend a lot of time talking about it because what else are we going to do? I mean, things are bearish. As we said about 2 months ago, we said we're entering a bear market when we went below the 20-week SMA, just like in 2019 when we went below the 20-week SMA. We said, okay, this is we're in a bear market here, and now we're in a bear market here. If you look at the natural log again of the price over the 20-week, again, if it's red, I generally say it's bearish, right? If it's red, meaning we're below both the 20-week SMA and the 21-week EMA. So things are bearish right now, so we're heading down for a little bit. But then I think at some point we'll pick back up. Anyways, that's sort of where I stand on it. Is there, it might beg the question: is there still a chance that the Fourier cycle ends up being correct? Yeah, I mean there still is, and that's why I think we should be flexible on exactly what happens. I'm just telling you what I think is going to happen. But what I think is going to happen is lengthening cycles and diminishing returns. But I can give you 100,000 reasons why people disagree with me. Okay, whether it's based on the halving, whether it's based on fundamental reasons. There's so many reasons as to why people might disagree with me, and they're not all bad reasons. Okay, it's not like all the reasons are necessarily bad reasons. It's just that I think this other model is going to be more accurate than those, and that's why I follow that one. But my guess is when we look back on everything in a few years, I feel like there's a high probability that there's not going to be a single model that tells the whole truth, and we will come to the inevitable conclusion that all models are wrong and some are useful. So that's sort of where I stand on that. All models are wrong, some are useful. We have our models. We try to go by them, use them as a guide to navigate the cryptoverse, but not to take any of the models to the bank. Okay, so again, you might say, well, I mean, there's you also have the 100 weeks at 20K. The 50 week is right where we currently are. So maybe we'll get a bounce. I don't know. I mean, the RSI on the weekly again looks pretty bad. I mean, depending on your perspective, right? I mean, depending on your perspective, we're all the way back down at 42. So the daily, our downtrend continues, right? I mean, nothing's really changed, right? Our downtrend on the daily RSI continues, so like one peak, another, and we've just continued here to get rejected. Basically, every pump gets weaker, right? Every pump is continuing to get weaker and weaker, and so the first thing we need to do is to break the downtrend. That doesn't necessarily mean it immediately leads to an uptrend, but we need to first break the downtrend, which we have not yet done. And then once we break it, then maybe we go sideways, and then we can maybe set in a new uptrend or something. But again, I think we just need time. We need time. We need lots of it, and then we can continue to discuss all the different theories you guys want to discuss. Yeah, I know the daily RSI broke down. Again, I've told you guys, if you're entering crypto now, you should enter it with the idea that prices are more likely to go down than up and be pleasantly surprised if you're wrong. Okay, that's the way you should enter it right now, especially on altcoins. Especially on altcoins. If you're buying Bitcoin, I would just go in with the mentality of it's more likely to go down than up, and be pleasantly surprised if you're wrong. Yeah, someone says we won't even get back to 60K this year, let alone 100K. I tend to agree with that. Like I feel like it's more likely than not we don't get back to 60K this year. But if you, I don't know. I've just been around Bitcoin long enough to try to not rule anything completely out. I would agree. I would say that it's more likely that we don't get back to 60K, 64K this year, but maybe next year. Nokia says you were telling me Wyckoff does not predict everything 1 to 1. Yeah, that is what I'm telling you. What about Ethereum? I posted a video about Ethereum earlier today, so uh, you can check that out. Let's see what other questions. Arshan77 says, listen to Jordan. Um, yeah, the guy who is, yeah, let's just, the guy who is saying we'd be at 100K right now, and that I didn't know how to do basic addition. Um, yeah, I don't think so. Let's see. Do I believe it's all manipulation? No, I mean it's just a market, right? I mean no one screams manipulation when things go up. Everyone screams it when it goes down. Technically, anyone, if you sell your Bitcoin, despite no matter how large or small of a stack it is, you're changing the market, right? So, um, I don't really think. I mean, I just think it's a market. I don't really buy the whole manipulation stuff. I just think it's a market. Markets go up and down. I don't think it's any more complicated than that. I think people try to rationalize why things are why things go in a certain direction, especially if it goes against what they predicted, and they try to blame the news for it. The news doesn't really affect anything. I mean, again, a country accepts Bitcoin as legal tender, and it doesn't do anything. Okay, so I don't really think the news matters that much. And I know that, again, that goes against what some of you probably think, and that's fine. But I don't really think the news matters that much. And I feel like some obvious points would be to say, well, a country declared it legal tender, and we're still going down. Yeah, I get it. It's El Salvador, right? It's not like it's the United States doing it. It's El Salvador. I'm not. I mean, I get that, but I'm sort of just drawing the example of you know the news does not necessarily matter. It more or less just helps people rationalize why things are doing something specific when that was where the momentum was taking it anyways. Yeah, Ryan asked me about storing or earning interest for storing offline. I think that it's worth. I think earning interest in crypto is great. I think more people should probably do it. Just make sure you manage your risk and make sure you're earning interest on platforms that that you trust. Make sure you guys subscribe and give the video a thumbs up if you like the content. Yeah, I mean, I get that. Yeah, I mean, I've witnessed firsthand, like Elon's tweets and the market, reacting. I would still contend that there was still a lot of momentum for Bitcoin at the time. I mean, Bitcoin rallied from um, from 3,800 dollars to $42,000 before Elon tweeted that Tesla had bought Bitcoin. And then it broke 42K once he did it. But it did a majority of the run. I mean, if you think about it, Bitcoin made a majority of its run to 64K before Elon tweeted that. So the idea that Elon is solely responsible for the market going to 64K is just not true. I mean, again, it had gone from 3,800 to 42,000 without Elon tweeting that. Now, it did go to 42,000. Uh, yeah, I mean, so that's the main point I'm trying to make, right? Yes, yeah, maybe on the very day he tweeted it, it had an effect, but you could also argue that we were already trading at like 38K the day, before we broke through 42, and you could rationalize that as the reason why it took us to 64K. We don't. I mean, that's not to say that if he hadn't tweeted that, that's not to say we couldn't have gone higher. But again, a majority of the move that Bitcoin made over those 14 months was made before they tweeted that Tesla had bought Bitcoin. Can I elaborate on why I don't think EIP 1559 will impact the price of Ethereum? Yeah, because I just think I like the upgrade. A lot of people like the upgrade. The reality is that most market participants don't even know what the upgrade is. And so, I think that momentum is much more powerful than upgrades. And as I told you guys back in April and May, I would expect a summer lull for Ethereum, and I don't see the upgrade having any substantial effect on the price. Seal Owl says news doesn't matter. Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I don't really think the news matters. That's why we don't talk about the news that much, right? I mean, if I thought it was overly important, we would talk about it more. Lucas says most market participants don't even use the networks, only trading on centralized exchanges. Yeah, it's another good point. A lot of people don't trade on decentralized exchanges, so they're never going to experience the effects of the upgrade on Ethereum anyways. So again, and the other problem too, as I've said before, is no matter how much Ethereum had gone up, anyone would always point towards the upgrade as to why it should keep going up. Like, right? I mean, if the price had gone from I mean, Ethereum was at like $80 last March, so if it had gone to $20,000, people would have then assumed, well, going into the summer it has to go to $30,000 because of the upgrade. I just think that it's easy to misunderstand what constitutes a cheap price when things just go up almost monotonically for a year. So that's the reason why. I mean, I think it's great for Ethereum, and I think it'll make things better for the next leg of our journey upwards. But I don't see it necessarily helping Ethereum get to any new all-time highs. Is the frog perched on the window? No, I don't see it. Yeah, we'll probably talk more about equities on the channel. The funny thing about the news is like, you can really people have their opinions on it, but you can never really prove it one way or another, right? Because you can't go back and relive the bull market that took us to 64K without a specific piece of news. Because if you could, you could just go back and prove one way or another if it has any substantial effect. Because you can't ever prove it, and we'll just keep debating about it from now until the end of time. Someone says I'm blocking the price. Why do you need to see the price? You actually want to see the price? There, you can see the price. Struth says we just play between 30 to 35K for the next 6 months. That's a possibility. That would probably be a great. I mean, honestly, if we stay above 30K, it would make it easier for people who bought at the local top for sure. Yeah, I mean, I get that some people are it's easy to look back. Again, I don't talk about everything on the public channel. I have the premium list, and I use the risk levels to trade Bitcoin. And again, for full disclosure, as I posted on the premium list extensively over this phase, by the time Bitcoin was at these levels up here, like at this point, I had sold 87% of my Bitcoin that was in long term capital gains territory. 87%. Okay? It was based on the risk levels. Okay? It was not based on anything other than the risk levels. So the idea that I think some people just want me to hold their hand and tell them exactly what to do on the public channel. But again, I mean, I tell you guys what way I think the market's generally going to go. And when we were over here, I said that the market's overheated. We need to have a summer. We need to go down, or we need to have a summer lull. We are ahead of schedule when comparing to the market cycle ROI. And again, I'm not going to say on the public channel exactly what I'm doing. I'm just not. That's what the premium list is for. Again, on this channel, we have no affiliate links. No affiliate links. You've never seen an affiliate link on this channel. Okay? So we don't shill anything like that. We have no paid promotions. You might look at other channels and they're shilling you some altcoin you've never heard of. Likely they were paid to do it. No paid promos. We also have no AdSense. I do not make any money on any of this stuff. Okay? So everything that I monetize is through the premium list, which is where I tell people what I think is going to happen in the market, and I tell them what I'm doing. Okay? So, if you're somewhat bitter about just, if you were buying Bitcoin up here, as I told you guys back then, I mean, you have to recognize the market's extended and that we were ahead of schedule. This is what I even said that on the public channel. So, I mean that basically is the gist of it, right? I mean, there's the public channel, there's the private channel. I have to have some stuff for the private channel. I can't just put everything on the public channel. That's the whole way that I run the channel. Um, yeah, I mean right now Bitcoin is trying to get back above 32 right now. And t-shirts, right? Yeah, yeah, I have t-shirts. You guys want to get a t-shirt, you can get a t-shirt. It's actually made of a material called Bella Canvas. It feels actually pretty good. Bella Canvas. I thought you guys might like that because of Bella, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Lincoln, ADA, and Dot. I think it's funny when the scammers that are literally pretending to be me also post pretending to be me on the live chat. No, we don't have any posters. Yeah, everyone talks about Head and Shoulders. I've often said the only Head and Shoulders we talk about on this channel is your your favorite type of maybe it's your favorite type of shampoo. Head and Shoulder, knees and toes. Yep. Will I ever consider making another channel on stocks or other assets? Uh, no. If we talk about other assets, we'll just do it on this channel. I'm not gonna mess with like multiple channel nonsense. We'll just do it on one channel. Yeah, I don't do paid promotions, but if Head and Shoulders wanted to do a paid promotion, maybe I'd that might be a fun one actually. I don't think my hair grows very fast. Do I think EIP 1559 will be a catalyst for Ethereum? No, no. I mean, I think that I think that Ethereum will still trend up with time and can probably go to, you know, $8,000 to $10,000 within the next few year, maybe within the next couple of years or so. But I don't think that upgrade is necessarily going to have an immediate effect on the price. Is the MACD indicator on a weekly time frame worth looking at? Yeah, I mean, we've looked at it on the we actually have looked at it on the channel um, a few times. But yeah, I mean, we haven't had a crossover yet. I mean, if you look at it on monthly, it looks pretty bad, right? I mean, the monthly looks really bad because we're about to get a cross here, um, and I mean, the last time we got a cross of the monthly MACD was back in 2018. Or sorry, this was the after this run. We had one later on too. But after this one, we still dropped another like 55%. We also had one in 2019 as well, sort of, and we did have a bit of a drop there as well. Maybe about, I mean, it was a wick 47%, but it was very short lived. I mean, it was more or less like a 20%, maybe like an 18% drop with like a single, like a single week where I went below that. Um, yeah. 3 day it crossed, I believe, didn't it? Yeah. So the 3 day was probably the most bullish looking one, right? Because it was actually crossing back up right there. So we'll see. We'll see if we get that bounce off the 50 week or not. No, the website and Patreon are the same. All right. I think we'll wrap it up. I think we should just go ahead and wrap it up. We're just sitting at 32K. Bitcoin's sitting at 32K right now. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe, give the video a thumbs up. Maybe look out for, well, let's see if we bounce off the 50 week. We're still right at it right now, right? I mean, we're still right at it. Sorry, that's the 3 day chart. Here's the 50 week. So the 50 week against at 31,878. We're right now at 31,960. That might be the best thing to look for at the current time. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. Definitely subscribe, give the video a thumbs up. Check out the premium list. You can do that at intothecryptoverse.com. We also do have a Telegram channel. If you guys want to follow that, we have over 44,000 people in there. Remember, I will not message you first. So if you get a message from someone pretending to be me, just recognize that it is not me. And then if you want to follow my troll posting on Twitter, you can do that as well. I'll post it in the chat. Thank you guys for tuning in. Subscribe. I'll see you next time. Bye.